Hello, hello, good afternoon. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Sunday 3:30 p.m. demo at the Miniatures Around the World online crop. And just finished up our afternoon chat and craft. Looking forward to our evening one that will begin at 7 o'clock this evening. So if you're available and would like to join us for that, we'd love to have you. We're going to be doing a card today for the demonstration, and we're going to be using one of the collections in here that I haven't yet shown you, haven't used, and it's called Wildly Flowering. Let me just find it. I forgot to put the tab in. It's called Wildly Flowering, and it's a gorgeous mix of colors. There's Wild Wheat, Mossy Meadow, Misty Moonlight, Moody Mauve, Early Espresso, and Crumb Cake. So some lovely browns, blues, greens, and then the lovely mauve color. And so you can see there that there's a lot of flowers, and there's also some textural type patterns as well in the DSP collection. And it is a 12 by 12 DSP. And we're also going to be using the Spotlight on Nature stamp set. You know what? I'm not even going to find it in the catalog. So I'm just going to show you the stamp set. Now, we did use this the other day for one of our projects. We used the leaves. So for this project, we're actually going to use this bunch of flowers and the sentiments that are on here. And so that is the Spotlight on Nature stamp set. And if you noticed the title when you clicked in, it's a card, and you'll understand what that means in a few minutes. We're going to start off first doing our stamping. If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching later on replay, you can drop a comment, say replay, any of those wonderful things. My phone is apparently making noise, even though I told it to be quiet. It didn't listen, as phones are wont to do. Let me fix that before it continues to make sheeping noises. And so we're going to be doing some stamping first. So I'm grabbing my piece of white cardstock out of my bin that I keep on hand for stamping. And the first thing we're going to stamp is that flower, and this is a cling stamp. So you attach your sticker on the back of your stamp when you're ready to get it ready, and then you can go ahead and stamp. And this works out well if you're going to be trimming it up later. Now there are dies that go with this stamp set, but what do I always say? You know me. I'm using the scissors on this. So we're going to do this first and get all that fussy cutting and stamping and everything out of the way first, and then we'll go into the construction of this Clearly It's a Card project. So there, we've just inked that up with the Tuxedo Black Memento, which is great for anything that you want to use with the markers. There we go. Just going to get rid of that excess paper. And for coloring this today, the pattern paper, the DSP that I'm going to be using on this card is from that Wildly Flowering collection, and it has a little bit of blue in here. Now, the blue that is in this collection is Misty Moonlight, and I do not have the Stampin' blend for Misty Moonlight, although I thought I did, but maybe it's one that I just ordered. And so it hasn't arrived yet. I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different kinds of blue already. As you know, I'm a new Stampin' Up! Demonstrator coming over from close to my heart. And so slowly you build up your list of supplies, right? You have to work your way through the wish list. So we're going to be coloring our floral here using blue, but I'm kind of cheating, and I'm going to be coloring with Boho blue. And when I tried it earlier, it looked close enough. So that's what we're going with. So I'm using the light Boho blue first. I'm using the brush end, and I'm going to just lightly color on here. And if I leave any little bits of white space, I'm not going to be bothered by that. I'm going to leave them if they appear, because I think that just kind of adds to the look of the flower. There's a lot of lovely sketch lines on here. And so a little bit of glint of lightness doesn't bother me. I'm going to turn this around so I can get this outside edge without going over the edge. There we go. I did go over the edge in one spot already, but we try. We persevere. There we go. I'm waiting for new glasses. I actually got my new glasses, but they were not the glasses that I had intended to get. And so they're not working out for me. So I have to this week, once crop is done and all the other things have been going on the last little while, I have to go back and get them to change them to something else. So that's my task for this week coming up. And I'm hoping, because what I'm getting is bifocals, that I will be able to see what I'm doing close up a little bit better. And then I'll have no excuse for coloring outside the lines. I'll just have to take it as a, oops, I colored outside the lines. Can't blame the eyesight for it anymore. So I'm coming in with the dark boho blue and just lightly coloring just along those little sketchy lines at the base of the flowers to add a little bit of shading there. And I think that looks nice and pretty. And then for my leaves, I'm going to come in with the light Mossy Meadow. And we're just going to color those up. I'm not going to do any shading on these. I'm just going to leave them as the light, because they have lots of sketch lines on there. And so that will provide some dark areas in this small space. So there we go. Down this one. And this stem is actually kind of thick, so I could color down it as well. I just have to be really careful using the very tip of this brush to do that, because you know me, if I squish too hard, it's gonna be everywhere. It will definitely be outside the lines. And the last one, and I went outside the lines on that one just for good measure. Now we're going to do some fussy cutting on this, but not only around the outside, we're going to do some interior fussy cutting, and sometimes that's easier to do when you have a lot of paper to hold on to. So I've just got my precision blade here, and I'm going to cut out some of these interior parts. And you'll see why I'm taking the time to do that when you see the project come together, I think, maybe. Or you might say, yeah, that wasn't necessary. But I kind of like the look when it is like this. So you're noticing that I'm keeping my hands away from the direction that the blade is going. I'm not cutting towards my fingers, trying not to anyway. And oh, that one didn't quite come out. We'll give it another little nudge. Sometimes you have to go back over something. And then we'll cut out this little triangular bit here. So I'm keeping my free hand fingers out of the way, holding the paper. And is there anywhere? Yes, over here too. We'll cut. You keep your fingers out of the way, because in case you have more gusto than you realize and the blade slips, you're just going to end up cutting through your paper and not through your fingers. Very important. Keep the fingers out of the way. It's like cooking in your kitchen, right? All right, now we're going to do some fussy cutting to trim around these beautiful flowers. They kind of have the look of very open tulips, but they could look like other flowers too, which I think is nice. And even though this is not the stamp set that was meant to coordinate with this paper collection, it really looks nice with it. And so I think that's important to remember, that just because there are stamp sets that come with a collection doesn't mean that's the only thing that you can use with it, right? You have things in your stash, you have other options, and you can mix and match. And I like that about stamps. You can kind of do as you please. I had been planning on doing a layout during our demo today, but then I got playing with this and I felt inspired. So, so we'll save our layout for another day and make this. Sometimes that happens, right? You think you're going to do one thing and then you go ahead and do another. I know there's some people, they work on the challenges at the crops and they're like, I totally was following the inspiration. And then this is what happened. And they're like, it's really nothing like the inspiration. I'm like, that's okay. It inspired you in some way. It got you crafting. And that's what happened. And I'm okay with that because inspiration is just that. It doesn't mean it's a recipe that you have to follow or otherwise your layout's not going to turn out. No, it's to inspire you to make something. So if you made something, it did the job. All right, so we're coming around here. Almost there. We're on the home stretch. I get talking and then I cut a little slower than I normally do. Does anybody else have that problem? You get talking and you get distract yourself. I know I can't be the only one. I had a teacher in school who said he couldn't walk and chew gum, which I find a little difficult to imagine, but I'll take his word for it. He was my science teacher in grade 7, my homeroom teacher and my science teacher. All right, there we go. We're at the bottom. We've got all our little bits. I'll gather those up, get them out of the way. So there's our lovely florals done. And now I want to start working on the base of the card because this is our main embellishment. So once we've got that done, we're now going to work on the base. So you may have noticed the title. We said clearly it's a card. And that means we're starting out with a piece of window sheet or acetate to create this card. So this has been cut to 4 1/4 by 6 inches. I'm going to grab my fancy new scoreboard, scoring tool, and I'm going to lay it on here with the 6-inch side going horizontally, and I'm going to score it at 5 1/2. At least I'm going to attempt to. Scoring it at 5 1/2. And with acetate, you know how I was talking about how I have to be careful that I don't push too hard. With acetate, pushing hard is okay. You would have to do some serious pushing on there to tear acetate, I would think. All right, so there's that. We're going to put that down in the little holder. So we've scored it at 5 1/2, and that's given us a little 1/2-inch tab. And even though this is acetate, we're going to follow the same rule as always. We're going to fold it with the bump side to the inside. So we're going to fold that tab over to the bump side like so. We're going to grab our bone folder and crease it down. It's acetate, so we need to give it a good crease to have it do what we want. There we go. And then we're going to kind of open it up a little bit because we need to attach this to, this is going to be the front of our card, and we need to attach it to the back of our card. So I have a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock here that has been cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I don't know why I'm measuring that. It's a standard card size. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some really good sticky adhesive to the back side along 1/2 inch strip. It's going to be the same size as that little tab. So let me just find the end of my sticky tape. So whatever kind of really good sticky tape you use, that's what you're going to use. I've lined it up along my grid here so that I can add my adhesive in the 1/2 inch space. If you have 1/2 inch adhesive, that helps. I don't. I have 1/4 inch. So we're going to add 2 strips of that across our card. And yes, I have it at the bottom just because it's closer to my face and I can see it better. There's no other reason. I just turned it around. It should be at the top because that's where we're going to be attaching our acetate. And this is on the back side of the cardstock as well. Make sure that's stuck down really good. And then we'll remove the backing. There's one. I might need my take your pick tool to lift that one. Lift. We need a lift. There we go. That's two. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn this around. So we've got the plain flat side. We're going to take our piece of acetate with our tab folded back, and we're going to slide this piece of cardstock in behind the acetate and slide it right up until it nestles in the fold of the tab. So I've got my little tab sticking out here. We're going to make sure it all lines up, turn it around, make sure everything is tucked in nicely. Oh, and of course it shifted when I set it down. Maybe we'll do it this way. Let's make sure it's all in nicely, and then we're just going to pinch at the top to make sure it doesn't move when we lay it down. And then we will stick it down like that. Now, if you look at the back of this, you wouldn't necessarily want this as the back of your card, right? Piece of cardstock with a piece of acetate that you can see all the gooey tape through. It's not necessarily appealing, right? So we're going to take our, the back of our card. We're going to add a little bit more of that red tape. I'm running out of red tape. Gonna have to source out some more. I might actually have one more roll of sticky tape. I'll have to try out the Terran tape from Stampin' Up and see how that stacks up to red tape. We're going to put a strip of red tape there, and then we can just use our regular adhesive on all the other sides. You know what? I'm going to turn it so I can see all the other sides towards myself so I know that I'm on the edge. And we're going to add adhesive on all the sides, and you may wonder, why are we adding adhesive to all the sides? And that's because we're going to put a second piece of cardstock on here to cover up our acetate tab that has been folded over from the front. So then we can go ahead and remove all of our backings. Always got to stick that stuff. I'm struggling. It wants to stick to me. There we go. I always have to stick the red plasticky stuff to my table and gather it up afterwards because it just sticks right to your hand. It's like crazy glue. So I've got a second piece of the Mossy Meadow that has been cut to the standard card size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to actually work from the bottom end here, and we're going to line it up with the base like that. And just lay it down across the whole card like that. There we go. So now we have a clear card front with a lovely Mossy Meadow base in behind. And now we can start with our decorating. So the first thing I want to do is I need to have a space inside for writing the message. Because we have a clear cover, we need to figure out a way to disguise that. And so I've got two pieces here. I have some white cardstock, and I have the wildly flowering DSP that I chose. And these have both been cut to 4 1/4 by 3 inches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil here and line it up on my grid. And I'm going to measure up 1 3/4 inches on the right hand side and just make a little mark. I'm going to do that for both of these pieces. So I'm going to line it up. Oh, there's something on my cardstock. Well, it is what it is. I'll use the other side. Why not? I don't usually flip because the whole, the way the trimmer trims, blah, blah, blah. 1 3/4 and make a little mark. And then we're going to take our little trimmer here, or a big trimmer, whatever trimmer you want to use, and we're going to trim from this top corner down to our mark that is 1 3/4 inches up from the bottom. So we're going to create a fun little angle here on our patterned paper, our DSP. We could save that for a different project if we want. Set that aside. And then we're going to bring our cardstock and we're going to do the same thing. Going to line it up at the top left point and come down on the right to that 1 3/4 inch mark. And there we go. My adhesive is trying to come towards me. Along with my pencil. Okay. So now we need to attach this. We're going to attach this to the inside of our card. Here's my adhesive. Add some of that on there like that. So that will give us a space to write our message. Now, of course, we could use the back of the card as well, but this is kind of a fun way to have our message hidden, even though we have a clear front. So we're going to line this up with the bottom of our card. Line it up nice and straight all the way across and stick it down just like that. And then you think, we need to cover that up. So this is going to go in there as well. But we're not going to stick it down just yet. We're just going to set it in there for a minute so that it's just hanging out, having fun, you know, doing the things. Okay? And the next step is we need a sentiment. So for the sentiment, I have a strip of the Mossy Meadow. Forgot the name for a second. Mossy Meadow. And this is 4 1/4 by 3/4 of an inch. And I have taken the sentiments, the entire sentiments that says, "Thanks, dear friend." And I have put it all on one block. It's 2 separate stamps, but you can kind of, you know, nudge them right up next to each other. I've got a scrap piece of paper here. I've already done the anti-static stuff on this. And I'm going to use my Versamark ink to ink this up. Thanks, dear friend. I want to stamp towards the right-hand side. And we're hoping this is in the center because I can't really get my head on top. I might have even nudged the camera with my head there for a second. And then we can go ahead, sprinkle our white embossing powder on there. We can even do it twice, give it a little tap tap, make sure there's nothing in weird places. Looks pretty good, although I see like a tiniest little speck here. What are the odds that I'm going to mess it up doing this? Sometimes you can just give it a little nudge with something sharp, and that will kind of move it along. Let's dump our embossing powder back into the jar so we don't make a mess. Oops, made a mess anyway. Excellent. Let's try that again. Because that happens. We make messes. There we are. Put our lid back on. And then let's bring in a heating tool and activate our embossing powder. I always love watching this. Right now you can see it's kind of dull and white. But once we add some heat to this, those little tiny granules, dust of plastic will melt. And then it'll be shiny and bright all the way across. And it goes pretty quick. You just want to make sure you point your heating element away from your hand because it gets warmer. It's warmer than a hairdryer. There we go. Thanks, dear friend. And you can see how nice and crisp that white becomes once you've done the heat embossing. All right, now I've got a little bit of that anti-static stuff on there. So I'm going to just rub it on my pants to get the little dusties off. And we can bring in our card base. We've also got our flowers here. So we're kind of getting all of our pieces ready, but I want to add a little bit of an extra element, and that is to add some little threads here. And when they come off a roll like this kind of linen thread, you're going to want to just run it along your scissors. Not like really hard, just enough to kind of relax some of that curl. And you'll see it start to kind of straighten out a bit like that, and that will really help. So let me see, maybe like 10 inches we'll start with, just to make it so we don't have to play with that. And then I'm going to tie a little bow. Now bows can be tricky. I know they can. We're going to wrap it around here. It's going to go around both the stems just below that double pair of leaves. And the trick I have found when you're tying a bow around something is you need to tie it twice. Okay, so we're going to make a single knot, then we're going to tie it again. If you only do one, your bow will be sideways. If you do two, your bow will hopefully be straight. That's the hope anyway. So now we can go ahead, we'll make our little bunny rabbit loop ears. You know, we learned how to tie our shoes and such when we were younger. At least I hope we did. And we're going to crisscross them over. And then we're going to put it through, around the tree and down the hole and whatever other rhyme we had when we were learning how to make bows. And then you just got to kind of play with it, right? Because you're going to need to make your loops a little smaller so you tug the ends. And then you need to tighten it back up. It's always a bit of a faff, I find, getting a bow to be where you want it and how you want it. But that's looking pretty good. A nice little bow. We can trim off the ends here in a minute. Okay, so we want to line up our pattern paper here with the edge of our card. And then we're going to take our sentiment strip. We're going to need some red tape. I think I just might have just enough to get this on here. I hope. I might not actually. We'll make it work. Look at that. We're right at the end. We're going to put a little bit there. I think I have another roll over there, but I don't want to go searching right now. And we'll put a little bit over here. Just enough. We're going to make it work. There we go. Take our backing off. If it will come off my finger. There we go. And while this card looks kind of, you know, zhuzhy, it's really not a hard card to make. It's just very simple. You're not using any more cardstock than you would with a regular card because we cut 2 pieces of that Mossy Meadow, but you would have had those 2 pieces on a regular card. The extra bit is just the acetate. So what we're going to do now is we're going to line it up on our grid here. And I want to stick my my strip here about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom and just lay it straight across like that. And now that we have done that, we can open up our card. You know, I'm going to have to look for the red tape because I do actually need more. There it is. Didn't have to look very far. Sometimes I'm organized. Got some more sticky tape. Look at that. Whole new roll. And it always likes to stick inside the package. You have to destroy the package practically to get it out. There we go. That's how you know it's sticky tape. When it comes out like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to open our card here. Let me just use this as a little holder so you can see what I'm doing. And we're going to put tape on the back side of where we put our sentiment. So we're going to add a couple strips of sticky tape because we have to stick our pattern paper on, but we don't want to have the adhesive showing through our clear card front. So this is a fun way to hide that little bit of adhesive I'm showing through. So there we go. We've got it on there. Let's move our prop out of the way. Take the backing off, like so. You have to think about all these little details when you're working with acetate. Now, don't let that close. We're going to bring this in and line it up with our card so that we know it's covering that white cardstock that's on the inside. And then we're going to lay down the front just like that, and ta-da! Now our lovely DSP is attached to our clearly front card. Of course, I did forget to put this down first, so, you know, we're going to have to adjust a little bit because this should have been stuck on first. We're going to use some glue dots to stick this on. I totally got ahead of myself. Oh, I do that a lot. I do. Let's add some glue dots onto the back of this. These are little tiny glue dots that will stick to the acetate. We're going to use a few of them, and you can kind of stick them in behind where the leaves attach to the stem. We can probably get about 4 on there, and I think that will be good to hold it. Now, I had meant to tuck it under the edge of this, but because we didn't, we could try a little bit, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly see where it's going to hit, and then I'm going to trim a smidgen of the stems just to make my life easier. And I can slide it under just a little bit of that cardstock there. We're making it work. The stem was not going to hang down below anyway because it wasn't long enough. And there we go. Now we can trim our strings here, our linen threads, to match each other. So we'll go with whatever the shortest one was. So we were pretty close with that 10 inches. I only trimmed off maybe half an inch there. And there we go. We've got our cute little card put together. Just adjusting my bow. I find you can adjust a bow about 100 times whenever you're working with bows. So clearly it's a card. We have our front cover made with the window sheets. We've added the lovely wildly flowering DSP in behind. We stamped out our floral using the Memento ink so we could color with the Stampin blends. We even cheated a little bit on the color. We used the Boho blue instead of the Misty Moonlight that's there, but I think it does coordinate close enough because the little bits of blue down here are tiny, and nobody's going to really complain, right? You made them a handmade card. And of course, stamping and heat embossing our sentiment. We've got a space inside to write our message, and we've hidden our tab at the back. So lots of fun stuff. Of course, you could add a little stamp on the back that says handmade just for you. And super cute. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing this. Clearly it's a card come together. And if you feel inspired to create a card like this, be sure to snap a photo of it and pop it in the comments when I post this on the event page. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. We'll be posting one more game before today is over, and we'll also be back on for Chat and Craft this evening starting at 7 o'clock. Love to have you join us. See you then. Toodaloo. Bye.